But 25 years ago, when you cast the original plot, you didn't see these costumes, you didn't see these characters, did you?
This is something I didn't really do until I started to sit down to write this script. I knew there would be a slave owner. I didn't know that he would actually run a junk shop and be blue and fly around on funny little wings.
Watto, the iconic Toydarian slave owner, is much more than just one of the countless CGI characters created for the Phantom Menace, as the current filmmaking process would not be the same without him. Everything began in 1975 with George Lucas founding ILM, the very first special effects company. Right after Star Wars, Lucas kept pushing the boundaries of digital technology, with Jurassic Park in 1993 as the breakthrough movie where computer-generated characters were used instead of the traditional stop-motion animation. So by the early 1990s, Lucas believed that the technology had evolved enough to complete his vision of the tragedy of Darth Vader. Watto was a creation from the mind of George Lucas. In the early stages of the Phantom Menace, concept designers began to explore different ideas for the many characters and worlds the movie would need. Lucas wanted trade barons, later called Neimoidians, to control the battle droids. These trade barons were among the first characters to be explored, with many different concepts proposed. Among them was this Doug Chiang early painting of a dark creature with a large proboscis. George liked it so much that it was to become the template model for the Neimoidians, but their idea evolved over time, so the painting was put in the Wall of Shame, with many other rejected sketches. But a year later, in March 1996, Lucas stated he wanted to update the old Neimoidian head design as he wanted to use that idea for a new character. And he described Watto verbatim.
He basically said Watto should look like this portrait. I want him on a really fat body, put on really tiny wings, and add duck feet.
At first, the creative team struggled to figure out the creature, as that exotic imagery didn't quite make sense to them. But Doug Chiang got it right, simply by drawing exactly what Lucas described. Now, if you noticed he's not wearing anything, congratulations, you are really observant. Indeed, Watto was conceived as a naked character, sort of like Donald Duck, where you really don't worry about him not having pants. But because Watto was going to be playing a central role, hovering at high height, it was going to become pretty obvious that he wasn't wearing anything below his waist.
Let's look here and see what we see. I don't know whether we can buy that. Sort of like Donald Duck. Let's put some pants on him.
Okay.
In the interest of being appropriate.
George Lucas also gave Watto a personality that no one expected. The first impression audiences may have of him is of a mean, immoral character who values life pretty cheap. The fact that he owns slaves speaks for itself. However, Lucas gave him all these layers of depth, of sympathy and even caring for Anakin, which implies certain goodness. This juxtaposition of ideas, a sympathetic slave owner, is what gives Watto its essence and quality as a character. The original rough draft of Episode 1 also explores more about Watto and his relationship with Anakin. As Shmi points out in the film,
all slaves have a transmitter placed inside their body somewhere.
I've been working on a scanner to try and locate mine.
Any attempt to escape,
and they blow you up. Boom!
Ha, word!
This script included a scene in which Watto uses a scanner to locate that transmitter in Anakin's neck, telling him to come back someday. This rough draft, completed on June 13, 1996, and made available in the Star Wars Episode 1 Insider's Guide, also shows that Watto would have mostly dealt with Obi-Wan instead of Qui-Gon, as he doesn't appear until the arrival at Coruscant with a minor role. In the final film, Obi-Wan's lines were simply given to Qui-Gon, but with some slight variations. For example, when discussing the payment for the hyperdrive, Watto claims that
Republic credits are no good out here. I need something more real.
And Obi-Wan simply states that he does not have anything more tangible. And he just leaves with no mind trick attempt. Watto was voiced and portrayed by Welsh actor Andy Secombe, with the casting process being fairly simple. In the early stages of the film, the Lucas Circus blew into London asking the production companies for voice artists. Seacom answered the phone and passed the auditions, where he was also asked to play Jar Jar Binks, who would have sounded something like this.
I did something like that. I think I learned Jar Jar Binks, which is sort of, slightly different. Yeah, it's a bit more sort of Blue Bottle from Lagoon.
Seacom based Watto's voice on a drawing and a description that portrayed him as a kind of wheeler-dealer with mafia connections, so he immediately thought of an Italian-esque, gruff, nasty voice.
I'm betting heavily on the Sebulba. He always wins. I'm betting heavily on the Sebulba.
But Seacom also had to stay physically on set to deliver the lines with the actors, traveling from Leavesden, England, where the interiors were filmed, to Tunisia. They followed him around, and after rehearsing, they would shoot the scene without him, requiring them to remember his position. For this purpose, Seacom had to wear a hat to provide a reference for the actors and the animators. This turned out to be a bit problematic, as on his first day of filming, he broke Liam Neeson's nose as he got a little excited while delivering this line.
Outlander, but you won't win the race, so it makes no difference.
So you have chosen death.
After pre-production and principal photography, it was time to bring Watto to life. Despite being only in 50 shots of episode 1, Watto had to be good enough to hold his own against the live-action actors, an arduous task carried out by Rob Coleman and his animation team with the aid of orthographic designs. One of the first issues with Watto was to make him talk realistically. He was originally designed with a trunk and 4 tusks, which made animators believe audiences wouldn't find him talking believable. To solve this, they decided to chip away one of his teeth and had him talk out of his left side of his face.
That you did, huh? The boy's good, no doubts there, huh?
Watto also gave some challenges when it came to flying, as the animators initially thought his wings couldn't even lift him up. However, George Lucas told them to think of him as having some helium in his belly. With this in mind, the animators worked to give the sensation of Watto being hung, and the wings supporting him from the shoulder level. The character was also given an extra level of realism by the presence of soft tissue, so when Watto would shake his face or talk, the audience could feel the looseness and fattiness in his skin. A realism also achieved by the sound of Watto's wings, which sound designer Ben Burt managed to make just by recording an umbrella opening and closing.
Phantom Menace opens at midnight.
The release of Episode 1 in 1999 became a cultural phenomenon, with Lucasfilm turning it into a marketing juggernaut. From toys from any possible aspect of the movie, to snacks and Pepsi cans, to lollipops, and of course video games, with Watto appearing in many of the Phantom Menace and Lego games, and Andy Seacom reprising the role, giving us some memorable Watto moments.
They come here, they look around, they no buy. Why nobody buys? Get lost!
And equally stellar performances. Despite Watto's minor role in the prequels, he became quite a beloved character. Enter the Clone Wars series, which gave the public the possibility to explore more about Toydarians, as the writers didn't want the public to judge an entire species for just one character that served a specific tiny plot purpose. Take that, Yoda. Its opening episode was the first time we saw Toydaria, Watto's home planet, and Toydarians besides Watto, showing the key role they played as a Republic ally during the Clone Wars. Dave Filoni decided to groom these Toydarians, with their king having a different appearance than the rest of them, basing his look on Prince Vultan from Flash Gordon. The idea was that they pride themselves on how big their bellies could be, so he made the kings bigger and rounder. But what about Watto? Is he still alive in the current timeline? Well, not exactly. In the new Disney canon, he seems to have been killed by Darth Vader himself. When Dr. Aphra asks him how he managed to find her, he remembers torturing for pleasure a junk dealer who resembles Watto so close. His name was never stated, but that Toydarian happened to be in Tatooine and was identical to Watto in clothing. The Disney canon intentionally left it up to the fans. In more general terms, Watto shows how far filmmaking technology has come. He paved the way for the development of digital technology and pushed the boundaries to the limit. A risk taken by George Lucas that changed the film industry forever.